I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I am so grateful that you're here because I get to introduce you to extraordinary women doing powerful things because they've said yes to life and stepped into their greatness. We do these every week, and we're on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon, any place you can get a podcast, just sign up and join us. So today, my guest is Karen V. Johnson. She's a graduate of Georgetown Law Center, a former Fulbright scholar in Afghanistan, and holds master's degrees in public health and public and international affairs. She's a retired federal administrative law judge who practiced criminal and energy law for more than 30 years. She's also a former U.S. Army officer major, USAR inactive. So Karen was personally trained by Alberto Villoldo and is faculty at the Four Winds Society and a master practitioner of energy medicine. Can't wait to talk about that. She is living, grieving, using energy medicine to alchemize grief and loss through Hay House that came out in 2021, July 7th. It's her first book. So Karen, welcome. I am so grateful that you're here.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful for you to have me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I want to get into your life and everything, but I want to start with where you came from, where you were born and how you grew up.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in a little town in southwestern Pennsylvania, Wendell, Harmony, which is a kind of a coal mining town. And so I grew up there, and my dream was kind of to get out of there. So as many people, have launched their ambitions about how we can change our lives and become something different. And so I did that my mother would take me to the library, and I'd get 7 books a week. You were allowed 7. And I would read a book a day. And I would read about all kinds of places and people and things. And I thought, that's what I want. I want to be those places, different places, and doing different things. And so it was sort of the dreaming of a child to be somewhere else, be somewhere different.
That is so funny. I grew up in Minnesota, and I had a similar thing. I was like, I wanted to leave. And my grandmother took me to plays and things because I always had this performance kind of energy. And so to get out and to do that, isn't it wonderful that you can be from a family that gets who you are and allows you to just step into that thing that ignites your soul?
Yes. And to be introduced to things outside of your environment, I think is so important for children, because otherwise, their worldview is this big instead of this big.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about education, because you're highly educated. and do you think all that reading opened you up to wanting to get more and more educated?
Yeah. My mother was afraid I was going to be a professional student, as she called it, that I was never going to stop. And I think it was all that. And then finding your place in the world. So I started out with public health and public and international affairs, and I worked in a hospital for a while. And then I decided, I don't think hospital is for me. Trying to get really people that are indigent to pay a lot of money for stuff just wasn't in my wheelhouse. And so then I decided to go to law school, and I really stayed with that legal business for 30 years in the Washington, D.C. area and in various capacities. In the second worst traffic in the country. I had to be crazy. I don't know why I did that, but you get kind of plugged in, and that's part of my discussion in the book, how we get plugged in like hamsters on the hamster wheel. We don't look to the right, we don't look to the left, we just keep in front of us because we put so many things in motion. So we put our mortgages and our car payments and our kids and this and that, and we're just, and as I say, we put it in motion because we do create our own reality.
Absolutely. So talk to me about being a Fulbright scholar in Afghanistan. How was that for you?
It was beautiful back then. That was 1984. Now I'm really going to date myself here, but but it was before the Soviet invasion, before the Taliban, before all that. And it was just a beautiful country that was beginning to come out of decades of turmoil and economic crisis. And Afghanistan's had that name of being the crossroad of nations. So it was invaded by Genghis Khan and then by Alexander the Great and the Russians and everybody. So everybody's been all over Afghanistan, and the people are many different ethnicities and also very impoverished and scarred by lifetimes of war. But at that moment, there was hope when I was there. So at that moment, it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you move from this career in law to energy medicine?
Well, like so many people, for me, the death of my son from a heroin overdose was the doorway. And some of us, Pema Chodron, this beautiful Buddhist nun, talked about pain is the doorway, and sometimes death is the doorway. So for me, his death, which was unexpected to me, he wasn't an addict, at least a severe addict. Maybe he was going down that road. I don't know, but he went to a party. They just got drunk and decided they were going to try heroin. And he was a big guy, 6'8", 280 pounds, and they gave him way too much, and he died almost instantly. And it just, he and I were very close, and it just completely rocked my world. I just flew, they talk about the matrix, flew out of the matrix, flew off my hamster wheel, flew off everything. Nothing made sense anymore. And I was in extreme grief. And so actually, I had been on a vacation in South Korea when he passed. And so I hadn't been feeling well that afternoon. And then at about 6 o'clock or so, I get a call and the person hung up. And I'm like, oh, I got to call this person right back. Something is not right. And it was a detective. And the detective said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in South Korea. Why?" And he said, "Well, it's your son." And I said, "Well, what? Was he in an accident? What happened?" "No, he's dead." Yeah, the call you never want to get. And so it took me a really long time because it's the night is day, day is night. So I couldn't get a flight out until the next morning. And then the flight itself was 14 hours. And so I didn't get home for almost 24 hours. But while I was sitting in the airport, Ben came to me. I saw him just like I would see him in real life, his big old grin and his silliness and all of that. And then he disappeared. And I called his father and I said, "You got to call the ME right now. I think he's alive. I think he's trying to get out of that refrigerator. You got to call right now. You got to call right now. I think he's alive." And I created such a fuss and I was so hysterical that the ME actually looked and came to the phone and said, "I'm sorry, but he's gone." And so this was sort of a big step for me into there is life after death, because I'm not really sure I believed in that before that. I would have said, live is alive and dead is dead. And that's all there is. I just wasn't sure about the spiritual life in the hereafter, eternal life, all of that. I just hadn't experienced that. I wasn't sure I believed in that. And that's opened the doorway for me. And it's a big doorway to open. I mean, once you open that doorway and you see that there's life on the other side, you can lose your fear of death. And the fear of death is what so many people carry around. When am I going to die? How am I going to die? What's it going to be? Am I going to cease to exist? So when you have answers to all those questions, it's such a gift. And in so many ways, Ben's death was a gift.
Well, and how wonderful that he came to you knowing that you needed comfort in that moment.
Yeah.
And that actually he was going to be a portal to change your life forever. And I'm sorry for your loss, because no parent wants to think that they're going to leave before the children are going to leave.
No, right.
But so I'm assuming that this work in energy medicine and the work with grieving, started to evolve there because, what I know is that, we're not taught to grieve. We're
No,
not
no,
taught how. So,
no.
so we just sometimes we're in it for very long periods of time because we don't even know how to get out of it. So let's talk about that. How do you use energy medicine to alchemize grief and loss?
Yeah, for sure. So in our culture, we're often told it's time to move on. It's time to get over it. Let's not talk about that. Let's not think about that. And we don't really have a paradigm, a way to say, okay, this is how you move through grief, or this is the process. And so I ended up, after about a year and a half, leaving my job as a federal judge and selling my house and all my things and giving them away and just having nothing and traveling the world for 2.5 years, trying to figure out grief and loss. And so I did not want to go to a traditional therapist because I knew they'd probably medicate me and I wouldn't see my son anymore. Right. And so I wanted to see him, know him. And, and so along the way, what I thought was going to be a blog, what I thought was going to be just a journey ended up becoming a book and becoming something that was downloaded to me. And I call it the journey of the bereaved. It's the same journey that our loved ones take on the other side through transition from their physical body to their spiritual body, resurrection on the other side, waking up and going, oh, wow, where am I? And then being reborn, either if you believe people are reincarnated or not. So they're reborn one way or the other into their eternal life. And what I was gifted with is that that's the same journey the bereaved take, or people that are suffering any kind of loss. So we also transition from this person being with us in their physical form to not. And then we wake up in the morning and this person is gone. They're just not here physically. And then we look around and say, what am I going to do with this? And then if we're really lucky, we get reborn and we create a new life out of the ashes of the old that honors our loved ones. And it takes a little practice to do that. It takes a little work. So my book has 16 practices that are based on the medicine wheel. The medicine wheel in the Andes begins in the south direction. And so there's 4 practices associated with south, west, north, and east directions. And I asked the person to consider 16 questions really deeply, to sit with a candle and a book and paper that they can write on, and a pie pan. I like to have a pie pan, and and ask them to write down things like, who are you judging? Who's judging you? What are the stories that you're telling yourself? I should have done this. I could have done that. I should have made them do this. I should have made them do that. All of these things that are rattling around in our brains that cause a lot of suffering. Attachments to our roles. I became very attached to the role of grieving mother. We become attached to widower, divorcee, failed business owner, all these labels. So if we can sit in ceremony and very quiet and get in touch with our soul and answer these questions with radical honesty, knowing that no one's ever going to see it because we're going to burn it in the flame of the candle. Because in the shamanic practice, the fire is a pathway to rapid transformation. And we allowing our prayers to go to God, to the universe, to whomever you believe in. It doesn't matter. And we know that we can get in touch with ceremony because when we walk into a church or a temple and we see candles, it's almost like instinctual. We go over and light a candle, right? And so we're kind of doing that too. And when we're accessing a different part of our brain, instead of being stuck in our reptilian brain, our everyday brain of fear and fighting and all those kind of things, when we step into ceremony, we're accessing our neocortex. And in our neocortex, we're in ceremony and things move like the wind blowing a feather. Things can transmute and transform and alchemize in a way that we can't do in the heavy physical realm.
Yeah, and that is so beautiful. And I guess I wanted to ask you, if someone is in the place you were before
Mhm.
your son died, thinking everything was matter and, we were alive and then we're dead, I mean, is there something that they can do to open? Is there a prayer? Is there something they can do to just open to a deeper understanding so that they can go through your rituals, even if they don't understand them?
Oh, for sure. Sometimes it's just allowing yourself to imagine the possibility, right? The possibility, not be closed, but to be, even if you're doubtful, even if you just have that little bit of openness, okay, I'm open to the possibility that there's more. I'm open to the possibility that my loved one, even though they have passed, is still watching, that my loved one, even though it might be in heaven, I always say it's not prison up there. They can come back and forth.
Yeah.
Right. And so, because people say, I don't know, I feel my mother around me. Is she okay? Is that all right? I thought she was in heaven. And that's terrible. So we get a lot of anxiety around death because we don't really understand the death process and the realm in between and the upper world and how things work and how spirits can negotiate it and navigate it and come back and forth. So once we kind of have a little understanding, a little openness and less fear, fear is not our friend.
Right. Right.
Right.
It's really interesting. I was very close to my grandmother, and on my 50th birthday, I was going through a lot of changes and trying to figure things out. And just before my birthday, I had this dream. And in the dream, I was sitting in this chair, and my grandmother came in with this hat, and there were spiders all around me. And I was like kind of really nervous. And she leaned in and she whispered, "Judge not by appearances."
Oh,
And it was such an affirmation that she had been with me forever. And in
yeah.
that moment, she needed me to experience the energetic of her, the physical resilience.
Yes.
So
Right.
I just think that anybody listening, you don't have to doubt for 1 second.
Right.
Anyone who's passed over is close.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That is absolutely so true. And once you know that, I think before I would also say, I don't want anybody to appear to me. I'm scared of that. Right. No, no, no. And so when we say no, 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 I'm scared of that. I don't want, so we're sending out that kind of vibration. If we're a little bit open to it and saying, this isn't going to be scary, that they're going to approach me in the most beautiful way possible, then it opens up that possibility for people, because people say, I've never seen anybody, I've never heard, I would love to contact my loved ones. So sometimes we just need to sit with the possibility, and also to work with the places that we might be stuck. Everybody's stuck somewhere else. So sometimes people get very stuck and they don't want to admit, I'm really angry that my mother wasn't there for me, my sister, my brother, my aunt, my uncle, this, that, the other. I'm mad at the doctor. I'm mad at the hospital. I'm mad at this. I'm mad at that. And we don't want to rock the boat. So what are we doing? We're like, push it down, push it down, push it down. So doing these practices allows us, we don't have to rock the boat, but we can write it all down and take it to the fire with the intention of letting that go and opening our hearts to different ways. So we're always with energy medicine, we're letting go and we're opening, we're bringing in, by letting go, bringing in, because the universe abhors a vacuum. So we don't want a vacuum.
Right.
Yeah.
So can we talk about time? Because some people are like, okay, they've been gone for 6 months. Why aren't you over it? I mean, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So can we talk about that everybody has their own timeline?
Yeah. Everybody has their own timeline. And I think instead of being disabled and limited by people saying it's time now, it's too long, there's no win in grieving. So if you don't grieve long enough, they say, well, she surely didn't care, that she didn't seem to bother her much, right? And if you grieve too long, oh, she's really not doing well, she really needs help. So you might as well grieve your own way. And if you look at it, what was immensely healing to me is looking at it as a journey. I'm on a journey and it's my journey. Nobody can tell me how long my journey is going to take. But the purpose of the journey is really to begin to let go of the places where you're stuck, where you're holding on, where you can let go a little bit so that you can work through the journey and come out at the other side, creating a new life out of the ashes of the old. And I think there's so many books that talk about what to do in the physical realm. Okay, you need to go and have a date, or you need to go to a movie, and but people are saying, I just can't, I don't feel it. I don't know why. And so working with these 16 practices in a ceremonial way, you get to find out why. Where are you stuck? Where are you still suffering? And what do you need to release?
Absolutely. So how do people find you? I mean, I know they can get your book. I know it's with Hay House and it's on Amazon, but how do people find you and, really tap into the work that you're doing?
Yes, you can find me at KarenJohnson.net. And if you sign in with your email, you get 8 things that spirits on the other side wish you knew. And you get my newsletter. It's about once a month. I don't put out too much because I know people get overloaded with things. And also you find out about any classes I'm having. So I'm going to have, I think, 2 classes upcoming on grief and grieving. One right before Mother's Day and one right before Father's Day, so that people can sit with others who are also grieving and work through these exercises. So each week they work on 4 exercises. And then you could talk about it with me and with other people in the class, and you can really begin to move this energy because it is experiential. It's not enough just to read the book and read the exercises. You have to really experience it and sit down and do the exercises. And so when we all work together, it gives everybody a little incentive to do that.
Absolutely. The power of community. I love that.
The power of community. Yeah.
So I ask every guest the same last question. This show is called Women Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know, what is the one thing you want women to know about the importance of their awakening?
It's so important because, oh my gosh, when I think back, I don't remember my 40s. I was so busy. I was so busy with children and the sandwich generation and my parents and all this. And so my awakening didn't seem even on the radar. Nothing about me. Life was not about me. And so even if you just take 10 minutes in the morning for you, 10 minutes to sit and meditate. So there's some really good books on like 4-minute meditation. We think, oh, I got to sit on the cushion for half a day. I don't have half a day, but you might have 5 minutes. Even if it's when you're putting the laundry in the washing machine and you lean on the washing machine and you just have a few moments. So to get in touch with your eternal self and to realize that we are both body and spirit.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. I tell my clients the calendar is for you too.
Yes.
Put in there. Choose.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Karen, I am so grateful you came. I'm so grateful that you did this work. And I'm so grateful that you listened, and took that inward journey so that you could bring the message to us.
Yes.
Of how we could heal and grieve. I'm very grateful to know you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful to know you too. And Ben really led me on this journey, and I felt that it was honoring him to write the book and help others. Yeah.
So incredible. Well, ladies, I hope you will go to Karen's site and see what she's doing, get her book, and really use it for yourself or share it with others. I just think it's so important that the women that come here get to be reminders of us, because I'm going to tell you what I tell you every week. You're amazing. You're magnificent. Yes. You're powerful. You're dynamic. There's no one else like you. You come here to do something that no one else can do the way you can do it. And so this is the time for you to awaken, to open, and to bring your gifts to the planet. I love being with you every week, and I love that I get to share amazing women. I will see you next time.